Round 8 is about to begin here at Hearthstone Masters Tour Arlington, brought to you by T-Mobile. So many competitors, more than 250, came to play this weekend, and we are narrowing down the field, getting closer and closer to that top 8. Doa and Frodan here to start things off.
That's right. Top 8 will start being locked in this round. Already some players virtually guaranteed, but not 100% yet. But they can 100% lock it in, especially the undefeated players going 8-0, 100% in. When you are at 8-1, 7-1, and then you go 7-2, I believe it will be a couple of tie-breaking scenarios, but we'll have to go ahead and put a pin on that because we're not sure exactly how things could shake up. A lot could change.
Well, we have 2 7-0s so far. Totosh is one of them, and Bloodyface, who we saw earlier on the stream today. Helkeen 6-1, Alan hanging with that at 6-1 himself. Tiz, Turbonik, Eddie, and Impact all 6-1. 2 of those players, Eddie and Impact, I believe is going to be our next match we have on stream.
That's right. And then, of course, we know that Bloodyface and Totosh, only one of them will be undefeated by the end of this round. And, you know, even though we've been seeing familiar faces in the top 8, it's important to see who is still continuing that trend, because you have to pair together a pretty insane win streak. If you really think about it, you have to go around 80 to 90% in this tournament in order to get to top 8. And it's going to be tricky. Yeah,
Eddie trying to get it done with Quest Druid. And that is a Druid, of course, that we have not seen quite as much of. Out of the Druid archetypes in this tournament, seems like it's been a lot of Token, a lot of Embiggen, and not as much Quest, but still a very strong deck right now, and capable of running a lot of those other slower deck archetypes that we've seen over.
Yeah, you know, Eddie last year was the one playing Quest Druid when people were saying that it was struggling a lot. This was specifically in Masters Tour Seoul in 2019 when he was like one of the lone Quest Druid players, and he made a very deep run with it before, you know, petering out at the very end. Either way, you know, it doesn't surprise me that once more, when Quest Druid is underestimated, he's bringing it.
Yep, no shock there. Impact bringing the Highlander Hunter. Just played against his deck on ladder. It can get kind of scary. You can have suddenly a lot of secrets to deal with at one time very abruptly, and how you handle those depends or kind of determines a lot of if you're going to be able to win.
Sure, sure. So here we go. Game number 1 between Grandmaster of America's Eddie, who used to be formerly known as Sohyun. Also one of the top performers in Grandmasters historically in 2019, although he kind of fell off in the playoffs, not able to advance forward. And then Impact, a player that's kind of been consistent in Americas for a while, but you know, as by his own admission, he's not like full-time into things like Hearthstone and playing.
Sure.
Because he also manages his own real estate business in Mexico. Alongside his family, so he's very busy, and I believe he also recently got engaged, so congratulations to him. Either way, Impact says that he plays Hearthstone in his free time, but he focuses on his financial freedom first because he doesn't want to be in a situation where he feels like he needs to be sponsored or dependent on
of course, yeah.
And I can always respect that.
Yeah, makes sense. It's good to understand what you're good at, understand how much time you have for things you love, right? And sometimes those things you love become the thing that you do for a job too. But until they do, job's got to come first. At the end of the day, hasn't stopped him from being a pretty awesome Hearthstone player.
I signed up to gain knowledge about Hearthstone, but left with life advice from Doa.
That's right, life coach Doa. Not that life coach, the other life coach.
Oh, I miss life coach.
We all miss life coach.
Well, you know, Impact is taking it a little bit slow with that freezing trap on 2, but I think it's largely because he just wants to protect his investment on 3, which happens to be that Dragon Bane. I mean, Impact has also brought Quest Druid for himself, so he understands the weak points of this deck, even just from recent memory, by playing this deck and understanding when he's been losing with it, which hasn't been much. Apparently, this Quest Druid has been doing fairly well.
It's a scary deck. It can overwhelm quickly, and it's got a good amount of board clear and ramp. It's kind of the Druid that does like a little bit of everything right now, as far as what Druids are good at.
Yeah, you know, the Druid is just very versatile because when you don't have to choose between one or the other, you end up having really good options altogether. Starfall becomes pretty powerful at 5 mana. But the question is if Eddie will be too far behind once the quest is online and running. And I think he wasn't really expecting Freezing Trap in that instance, but he is aware of Impact's deck list, so he knew that was a possibility.
Yep. And at least, you know, it's out of the way now. So there is that.
Sure. I mean,
deal with the 1-1 here.
Makes it easier for when he wants to play Oasis Surger. That is often a big turning point for the Quest Druid if they can start stabilizing with Oasis Surger trades.
Snipe is a draw for impact. Deciding what beast to throw in there. Definitely wants to save a little bit of room here. Just decides to go in on the damage, actually. Get the board a little bit more established, because when your opponent's using that Power of the Wild early to get the minion, then you know that they're probably not going to be able to contest you with a lot of early threats. So you can just kind of pile the board and make sure you're not too prone to swipe. Like this board, you know, is starting to look a little bit, but, you know, just put the pressure on.
Yep, trying to pull up the deck lists here and see if there's anything different outside the norm. It doesn't look like it. I guess the difference would be that Eddie does have some extra top end because of that Scenarios, as we saw on the deck list screen, while Impact is not. So we'll see if that ends up becoming a factor. For the most part, if I'm Impact, I'm just happy that I have the board here against Druid before the quest is completed.
Yeah.
And I think Eddie's even contemplating that too. Like, he could play Oasis Surger as a 5/5 and kill Dragonbane. He knows that the second copy of the Rusher, the Springpaw Rusher, is no longer available, so Hunter has trouble dealing that extra point of damage. And he does have Innervate to even finish the quest as well. So that was the first thing that like jumped out to me, but it seems like Eddie wants to save that Innervate for some other use later on, and is okay taking more damage from Dragonbane.
All right. You know, it comes down to it. Druid can get pretty resilient in the late game, and you can throw up like a lot of taunts and stuff like that in this deck. Yeah, should be okay. And there's a quest completed. So now he does unlock the ability to get both of the choose one options.
Right, and now Oasis Surger is like really nutty, so totally fine, and like Eddie understands the value and the power spike there. So you know, it was just an idea that I was exploring. It's not something that I feel like is super good. Just, I always get scared when Hunter deals a lot of damage with things like Dragonbane.
Yeah, it is concerning.
Right, and now the quest.
The quest is done, and you know, Druid decks generally are about cheating out advantages, right? Doing something that you aren't normally able to do, whether it's play minions bigger than they should be for the cost, or to do like this, where you get to get both out of a choose two, or choose one.
Yep.
One gets sniped, but it's okay.
Yeah, just
he lives.
Okay.
Best case snipe scenario.
Yeah, I do wonder if Eddie should have traded with the other one, knowing that he's going up against potentially Unleash the Beast. I think he might have played that one a little quick, but maybe in hindsight he would have been making the same trade anyways.
Could be. I mean, keeping your minion healthy is another argument you can make, I guess.
Yeah, it's just that, you know, Hunter has trouble again dealing with like the 1 damage, 2 damage breakpoints because there's just not really a thing a class specializes in compared to like Mage. So, you know, I feel like Eddie could have maybe stuck an extra minion on the board here.
That's a good point. Secret Keeper shows up to the party a little bit late here. It sounds like a helicopter when that minion comes in. Have you ever noticed that?
When the Wyvern? Yeah, because that's how they get dropped.
From a helicopter?
Yeah.
It wants to save its energy. Its wings would get way too tired if it had to fly to the battle itself.
It's not very eco-friendly.
Helicoptered in.
Azeroth.
No, it's not.
But it is quite amazing technology, and you know what? When you're a billionaire like the Wyvern, why not go ride in style?
I suppose. I'm surprised that the gnomes would give the Wyvern a ride in their helicopters. I guess goblins have helicopters too, so, you know.
Look, it's 2020. I think we can definitely be understanding of all walks of life, Wyvern or Goblin.
The Horde and Alliance have put aside their differences long ago. Yeah. That is true. It's brawl time. See if Zephyrus comes out unscathed of his own brawl. Nope. It's going to be one of the Anubis defenders.
Yeah, I mean, he was hoping that, like, at worst, the 4/4 would survive on his opponent's side, but it was just as likely for a 5-attack minion to survive instead.
Yeah.
This is just still, like, a lot more stats. This is starting to get out of control here. However, Impact does have a semi-definitive answer in the form of Varanus and Unleash the Beast.
Man, though, that is an intimidating board to look at.
It is. It's an intimidating board, but I'm still not really sweating it from Impact's side unless Druid's threatening big damage.
The Varanus really is a lifesaver here. That's for sure. So he does manage to clear that.
Part of it. Most of it.
Can't clear the the stealth, of course.
Yeah. Eddie has a depth charge. That is a 1-mana barrel minion that at the beginning of your turn explodes and deals 5 damage to everything. Very similar to what Doomsayer does, except instead of killing everything, it just deals damage. And, you know, some people thought that it might see some play as anti-aggro strategy. Eddie's also primarily known in his style of play to be a person that loves to make unusual tech choices like that. He would take like a deck list that people would play and then like put a few cards in that everyone's like, are you sure? Doesn't this just make it worse?
Mm-hmm.
And he usually finds really good success, as you can tell, 6-1. And I wonder how well that depth charge is working out for him. Clearly, in this position, it's not going to do very much. But
right.
Against, like, you know, if he runs into aggressive strategies of some kind, that depth charge might buy him some very crucial turns.
Yeah, you like it against maybe something like Galakron Warrior to stave off some of the early game. Galakron Warlock, too, to the same token to deal with some of those imp invasions early on. So it does have its uses in this meta.
For sure.
It's interesting. Deciding on what to do right now, Starfall would be a clear, and looks like he's going to go with that. And just drop the Panther from earlier, because why not?
Yeah, he has to fill out his mana curve. I don't think he wants to attack, though, because he has a second Starfall, and he might need it, especially... I don't think he wants to attack, though, because he has a second Starfall, and he might need it, especially if Dire Tamer Brand is a potential possibility to be dropped out on the following turn. Impact reaching for Ziliax. I think he feels a little bit uncertain as to like why Impact isn't attacking with a 5/1, because Impact's at 19 life, so maybe he feels like he needs to be defensive and he's making a read onto Eddie's hand.
It is interesting.
That's what it sounds like to me, because from a perspective, I guess like there's other ways to make this board better. Oh, he's using Faceless Corruptor and converting his Ziliax.
Wow, I was kind of expecting that would be the direction the Secret Keeper would go at this point in the game, but he goes ahead and just establishes that 4/4 board, just makes it a little bit tougher to take out with another Starfall, which we do see is in the hand of Eddie anyway.
Yeah, it is certainly curious to me, because Eddie doesn't have swipes in his deck. And so, you know, if Impact was afraid even slightly of Eddie's burst damage, he still could have gotten the same thing, but instead of playing Ziliax, he would have played Secret Keeper and Hyena Alpha. But I guess Hyena Alpha only summons... It doesn't summon anything, because there's no secret.
Right.
So, you know, Hyena Alpha will only summon those 2/2 wolves if you have a secret up, so that actually explains a lot. Impact realizing his hand is kind of gutted without the secrets.
Brand coming in, and the deadly shot to take out the barrel.
Eddie finds the Forbiddeness Floop and has a 4-mana depth charge in his hand.
Oh, wow. You know, the funny thing is usually when you shoot an exploding barrel with an arrow in like a movie or something, it explodes and does even more damage. In this case, it prevents the exploding damage. Bees!
I know. My immersion!
That's right. Ow, my lore hurts.
Eddie has 2 hidden oases to heal a bunch of life and put up a taunt, but doesn't really get the maximum value off the heal. However, they are expensive cards, and I feel like you do need to get them out of your hand eventually. The worst feeling is when you die and you have both of those in your hand.
That is the worst feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're just dead. It is a problem.
I mean,
like,
I wouldn't know personally what it's like to feel dead, but I think for the most part...
In Hearthstone. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well acquainted with
having
that.
an existential crisis over it.
That's right. Hey kids, let's watch this fun Hearthstone. Do you know what it feels like to be dead?
I don't think anyone knows what it feels like, to be honest.
A few people, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, Eddie.
Have you watched Twilight?
Feels dead. Have I watched Twilight? Are we? Are we being recorded right now? Probably not. No, actually, I haven't watched Twilight. Why?
Oh, that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Wow. Is this stigmatizing against people who have not watched Twilight?
I'm saying the vampire people in that movie.
Oh, yeah, they know what it's like to be
dead. Or at least undead.
Right.
Speaking
or
of
the
vampires,
Walking Dead.
Former of undeath. They are walking. They're playing baseball even.
Are they?
Unfortunately, yes.
Now that ruins my immersion.
It ruins. There's so many things that are ruined by that movie.
Yeah, and
it's entertaining though. We'll watch it after the cast.
Great. We have a lot of time.
Get everybody together.
Going through our Swiss rounds really quick.
I know Sottle in particular is a big Twilight fan.
Oh, that makes sense. He
Team
does seem
Edward, 100%.
Oh, yeah? That would make
right.
sense. I'm totally Team Jacob. Not that I watched it or anything.
Do you know what the difference is?
Team Jacob is the guy that has the abs. So I like that.
I think they both have abs. Just one has like shiny vampire abs, and the other one has hairy werewolf abs.
You know, I'm gonna go with the shiny abs.
All right, it's your Team Edward then.
Dang.
Changing teams. All right, I'll accept it. It feels like it's a pretty, you don't like taking 6 damage in this case.
You don't, and you also don't necessarily even take any damage.
Or yeah, still 3 is quite a bit. Still does 8 to face with the King Crush, so that's something anyway.
He's very aware that with 2 cards remaining in the deck, it's a high chance Eddie has Starfall again, so he's trying to keep his King Crush outside that range.
Right.
But that second Oasis Surger, along with the Forbiddeness Floop, but that's not
also
gonna
be an Oasis Surger now.
That's true. Eddie attacks, activates the Snake Trap. Now can clear with the Starfall or use Oasis Surger number 2. Both are viable options here.
The Starfall seems a bit cleaner, even if it does leave you with less minions on the board, I suppose. Starfall just becomes Super Swipe.
Super Swipe.
Super Swipe. Oh, Misha jumps out to defend, impact at the last moment.
Yeah, Eddie is pretty much all in. A lot of his cards draw, and he doesn't really want to be drawing here.
Yeah, especially with Rising Winds.
The thing is, though, Impact's almost out of cards that can actually deal with stuff. He's used Zephyrus. He's used his Dino Tamer Brand. If he finds Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, that could be something.
True.
But in this situation, Eddie pretty much only has 2 cards that he feels comfortable playing to extend onto the board, which is Oasis Surger B and Bees. If he plays other cards that can play minions, he is at risk of drawing too many cards.
Here comes the false Oasis Surger, but hey, it works.
It's actually better than the original Oasis Surger.
Yeah.
It's better in almost every way. It's cheaper, it has more stats because it gains +2/+2, it's 5/6 rushing.
It's pretty solid. Rising Winds just to summon some Eagles, but it does draw the last card in his deck, but at least he has that Ysera now. Assault of the Bees.
He had a little bit of an order issue.
Yeah, that was rough.
Little bit of an order issue. Will it matter? Will it matter?
What's the big old whelp going to bring in?
Oh, Soljin.
1
card too late, or 2 cards too late, rather, here.
Yep.
As Impact is going to concede a very crucial game number 1. Goes over to Eddie, but Eddie not even happy with his final plays. When players make technical mistakes like that, they beat themselves up.
We've seen more of that today, too, and it's no surprise as we are in the second day of Swiss play and people's mental fatigue is starting to set in, You try to sleep after the night of the first tournament, wondering what you could have done better, what you could have done, worse. Glad you didn't do that, maybe. Did you get enough sleep? So it gets tougher today, and we've certainly seen a few more little errors here and there from some of the players today.
Yeah, and again, like, one of those things that's really important is landing the win here, because a loss means that chances are your tiebreaker might not get you into top 8. It almost will certainly get you into like a top 16, but you want to be 7-1 after 8 rounds, so that way, even if you lose, there's still a pretty decent chance you can get into the top 8.
Yep.
A loss here is very tough. So Eddie would be the first player to back-to-back repeat as Masters Tour champion, as he is, I believe, the most recent reigning Masters Tour champion in Bucharest at the end of 2019.
And that'd be pretty amazing considering the pool of players you have to play through to do that.
Right, and he also just got re-signed by Lazarus, so it would be a really nice way to reward their faith.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yep. I've been saying for a while, alongside a lot of other people, even way before me, that Eddie is probably the most underrated player in America. I think a lot of people like to look at some of the traditional players who have been dominating so well, like Justin or Muzzy, for over the course of years. And by all means, they're fantastic players, even going back to the old days like Fire, Bad, Purple.
Sure.
But Eddie is really ushering in a new age of America's ideology of like doing it in a very humble way. He also is doing it in a very unusual way with his tech choices, adding in these like 2 or 3 cards every single time he competes in a tournament. That always takes me off guard.
I love that, though. That's the best part about these tournaments is seeing the little tech decisions that you may not have expected that some of the players are kicking into the decks. Game number 2, starting off between Eddie and Impact. Going to be Rogue versus the Druid of Impact now.
Yeah, so Rogue versus Druid. This is, I mean, Rogue is a class that can really punish Druid if it gets off to a quick start. Quest Druid does take a while to get set up, so this is a tough one. However, Impact knew that going in, and we'll see if his Quest Druid boasts about how it really hasn't lost very much in this tournament for him.
We haven't gotten to see a lot of Rogues either. It's been banned.
It's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Come to think of it.
Let me see what was banned on Eddie's side here.
I would guess possibly Warlock?
So Impact
I don't know what he brought, though.
banned Eddie's Priest.
Priest. Interesting.
And Eddie is playing the Resurrect Priest. And then Eddie banned Impact's Rogue.
Okay.
Which is a Galakrond Rogue.
Skyvateer for Eddie, so a little bit extra card draw at some point.
Yes, so the extra card draw is fairly valuable just to get you a little bit closer to activating High Spear and Togwaggle. That's going to be the card of focus in the mid-game stages, I believe.
Right.
Eddie can kill this 1/4 with the backstab, and I think it's important to do so. Card draw is a way that Quest Druid really shores up this early game. The fact that they're not really doing much, you can still draw a bunch of cards and come back.
Yep, got to prevent that for sure. All right, Impact draws into the Warlord Lottie. All right, so just trying to get closer and closer to that quest, and he is very close, just 1 turn away now.
1 turn away, and the thing is, we have to figure out what Impact's going to do on 6, because on turn 5, we're pretty sure he's just going to float a mana of some kind, most likely even just Hero Power and Wrath or something.
Right.
Can Eddie set up a big enough board the next 2 turns to really threaten? And the answer is, I think, very much so. He has the Candlestick, and he also has the Faceless Corruptor, and both of those are really, Candle Taker.
Candle Taker.
They are fairly sticky minions that are hard to remove for Druid.
Yeah, true. Good amount of damage too from the Candle Taker with the Reborn. So going to get the quest finished this turn. It seems like he hasn't drawn like a huge amount of removal just yet. He's got the swipe, I suppose, but it's really about it right now.
Yeah, he needs that Oasis Surger before he'll feel comfortable. So a slow start from Rogue.
Yeah.
Definitely works into the Druid's favor, and that's probably the best thing about Quest Druid is that you're gonna like force your opponent to be consistent on their draws, and if the moment they're not, because no deck is perfectly consistent, then you know the Druid gets to run away with the game.
So, do you want to Sealed Fate your opponent's face to get the Lackey to possibly enable a Togwaggle play next turn by Lackey Coin Togwaggle?
I think I value stats a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it is definitely worth considering if you didn't have. I think if you didn't have it, that would almost 100% be the play. If he had just like another backstab or something.
Sure.
But this Faceless Corruptor is very mana efficient. Because the flip side is after you use Seal Fate, what do you do after that?
Hero Power.
Yeah. So the couple of 4/4 seem pretty good.
Sure.
Impact with the double draw and the War Druid Lodi coming out here. And I think like this board is just still scary enough for Eddie where he's going to be hesitant how much he wants to develop in this spot.
Yeah, a couple 3/2s and then a everything. Seal Fate on one of the Eagles. And we'll see what lackeys he gets. Thinking about playing the Evil Miscreant. Waiting to see what he draws first. All right, there's a Shield of Galakrond. Can't use that this turn.
He is running into a pretty full hand, which is
not
necessarily a bad thing, but it does make things like High Spear and Togwaggle's plays a little bit harder to pull off.
Oh, you can always drop a couple of lackeys, I guess.
Right before you play the treasure.
Yeah. Opts for 3 to the face in order to get 8 to his opponent's face, which I think is pretty worth it.
Impact was probably looking for an opportunity to nourish for a while, but I think he's going to, if he were the Expeditions, because he wants to find potentially cards like Starfall instead. He's a little bit off from like the ideal scenario, which is being able to find, oh, he finds a Wrath.
It's not bad.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, gets rid of one of the 4/4s, draws a card. But after this...
Right, after that is definitely a bigger question.
Rising Winds again, just trying to get through his deck and see what's out there. Do you just do basically the same out there? Do you just do basically the same board you had last time? Just end up with Lodi and 2/3/2s? No, going to the Power of the Wild instead, just to make it a little bit more durable of a board. That makes more sense.
Yeah, I think Impact, he only has a swipe, so keeping the Lodi Stealth is purely a move to capitalize on spell power.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might as well just clean up the board and save your health total a little bit. Sometimes also keeping in stealth is a move to protect yourself against poison. Oh, sorry, you protect yourself against big minions using the poison. So if your opponent went for a big Van Cleave right now, you'd be able to answer with Lodi.
Right.
All right, so now we're in Eddie's camp here, and we very much want to play High Spear and Togwaggle this turn. What's the best way to go about it here?
He's got 7 mana, 8 with the coin. He's got a Draconic Lackey and 2 Goblin Lackeys, it looks like, in terms of Lackey activators.
Okay. It's not looking very clean.
Yeah, it's tough because there's just so much damage on the other side of the board right now that if you go for like the wand, which you usually would with Wag Toggle, then suddenly you're looking at taking probably a good amount of damage this turn.
Right, so that was actually a really good move by Impact. Using the Power of Wild makes it so that Faces Corrupted doesn't get any easy trades.
Yeah.
It has to down-trade itself. Eddie goes for the Draconic Lackey. And then Alex Straza.
Alex Straza. Okay.
Aggro his opponent.
And with the Togwaggle, see what he grabs. Grabs a wand. I feel like you barely ever see anyone take anything else. 4 damage to the face, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I thought of this variant, or this line of play, but I was expecting maybe to use High Spear and Togwaggle as the rusher to trade into a 4/3. But I think he felt like that would open himself up too much to AoE.
That's a good point.
That being said, he's still kind of open to AoE.
Well, now it's going to be harder to get to the target he wanted to get to, since he doesn't have minions, and there's 2 Anubis defenders out now.
Maybe even 3.
Yeah, could be 3. Why not just pile it on? You know, Rogue doesn't have a ton of big board clears in most decks right now.
Yeah, a common theme that we tend to see is Rogue struggles with AoE, and free minions are really good.
Yeah, free minions are not bad. Yep, getting to play a 3/0 cost 3/5 taunts is pretty strong.
It's very, very strong. I mean, we've learned that lesson so many times in Hearthstone history. We've learned that with Corridor Creeper. Most recently, people learned it with Mogu Flesh Shaper, Anubis Defender, Arcane Tyrant. The list could go on and on and on. But when you have a minion that says cost X or cost 0 if you just play something, and you can reliably pull it off, it usually means that it's like a god tier card.
Yeah.
In fact,
wow.
During Quest Druid's dominance, I'm lucky to pick up the Shadow Step, by the way.
Yeah.
During Quest Druid's dominance, during the Old Doom meta before Descent of Dragons came out, the highest win rate card off the mulligan was actually a Anubis Defender that wasn't flipped.
Really?
Yeah, it was fascinating.
That I mean, it makes sense a little bit because you almost never pay for it, you know?
Right, and it's like one of those things that, like, well, logically it makes sense. If you finish the quest, a lot of times you're behind and it helps you climb back on board because you're playing like Nourish or Starfall and you're immediately defending yourself.
And if things are already going well, then it's just an extra 3/5 to throw at your opponent and keep yourself even more safe.
For pressure, so then you can use Power of the Wild or scenarios and close it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Impact sees that Eddie is fighting back pretty resiliently, and the moment Eddie picks up Galakrond at this point, he is going to be adding a ton of pressure. Can Impact close the game soon? And this does look to me like potentially an opportunity for Impact if he were to go for it, to explore Ysera Unleashed. Largely because he's not under too much threat just with this board. I guess what is scary, though, is the hand damage.
Yeah, I mean, you are worried about Leroy Shadow Step, which is something that's actually in Eddie's hand right now. And so anytime you're sub 20 health against a rogue like this, I feel like it gets a little bit scary. Yeah,
the only thing is that he's he has 9 mana, which means that Leroy Shadow Step would take 8 of it. And then Impact would be safe there.
Yep, depending on how many, I guess, minions were still around. But
you know, as mentioned,
probably.
Like, totally doesn't have to. He's still building up a very reasonable board right now. And he's actually pushing damage, which I like a lot here.
Yeah,
utilizing the second copy of Lodi.
Yep, 6 health is all Eddie has left. Oh, but he draws into the Galakron.
Is this a fully upgraded Galakron?
That's a good question. I feel like it's not quite there yet. I feel like
It's only at stage 2.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't he invoke twice? I think it was 1 Shield of Galakron and 1 Sealed Fate, if I remember correctly.
So many options.
It looks like that is the case because this says upgrade or invoke twice to upgrade.
Yeah, that's the case. Only invoking 2 times so far this game. So he does get the 2 cards. And they better be good. Free Faceless Corruptor and a free Praise Galakron. That's not quite what you want to see, but at least the Faceless Corruptor is usable. There's not a lot to run it into, though, honestly.
Yeah, there's just pretty much the ward with Lodi, and then you're still staring at a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But we'll see. The card draw. A Lackey.
Yep.
Play Faceless Corruptor onto that Lackey. He can also Shadow Step something.
Do you really want to Shadow Step something? It seems a little bit... Doesn't seem a little bit risky. He's going to do it anyway. I guess you just have to remove minions, don't you?
Yeah.
That's rough.
And he ends up shooting the 3-2, 9 damage on the board with 11. Impact looking for any possible way to close this game if he finds the second swipe. And there it is.
All right, that'll do it. And it looks like Impact is going to tie this series up. 1-1, gets a win with the Druid.
Well done. So the Druids getting the win. Quest Druid from Eddie over the Highlander Hunter. And then we have the Quest Druid from Impact defeating the Rogue. Quest Druid very much on the map right now.
Yeah, it seems like it's a deck that's coming up very quickly. I mean, it's a deck that's been around for a while, but it seems like with some of the newer additions to like Rising Winds, you just have more options to sort of refill your hand, get more presence on the board, and so it's a deck that seems like it's only been getting better over the last few weeks.
Right, and I'm pretty convinced that we haven't even found the optimal list of it yet. I think that there's a lot of 2-ofs to make it very efficient, but in order to make it optimized for the current metagame, you maybe put in 1 or 2 tech cards, or you kind of, you know, alter things. And so, you know, Eddie, for example, he's the depth charge, right?
Yeah.
He's not running the swipes. Impact wants to swipe so you can have a little extra reach or maybe some AoEs to match with Lodi. And, you know, there's still some people that when they play the list, they're still playing the traditional tools like Zephyrs and Elise at the top end, so that way they can go over the top of really slow defensive decks. So it's definitely interesting, worth exploring, like, more Quest Druid as time goes on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, exciting 2 games. We're tied up 1-1 between Eddie and Impact, and should be interesting to see how this one shakes out, because remember, the stakes are very high now for pretty much everybody, especially these 2 players. They want to stay alive. They want to make it to day number 3. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll see if one of those players can do just that. See you then.
Hearthstone Masters Tour Arlington is brought to you by T-Mobile. Rank up with America's first and only nationwide 5G network.
T-Mobile 5G is here, and it's nationwide. While some 5G signals go only blocks, T-Mobile 5G goes miles, beyond the big cities, to the small towns, to the people. Millions of Americans can have access to 5G on T-Mobile. This is just the beginning. T-Mobile, the first and only nationwide 5G network.
You'll hear a lot about how coming out of the military means you're somehow damaged goods. I would reject that. I believe that people coming home from combat can actually have gone through post-traumatic growth. And probably the most important thing we can do is provide jobs for those who get out of the military. Together, we can get veterans back to work.
And we are back at Hearthstone Masters Tour Arlington, brought to you by T-Mobile. And the first two games moving fast and furious, just like T-Mobile's 5G
Nationwide coverage.
Nationwide coverage.
The first and only.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's what they say.
T-Mobile
T-Mobile
solves all your problems. Even
But-
the cable management issue that you see on your screen. Wow, that is those are so
Really?
many different wires and mazes. It may or may not. We're adding the last three.
I don't know. Be careful about false advertising.
That's
there.
right. Your results
Yeah.
may vary.
That's right. We can either come around.
a bunch of little fine print at the very bottom of
That's
your
right.
screen. Coming up next, we have a Mage Mirror between Impact and Eddie. I wonder if they've even helped prepare with each other, given that they have relatively similar lineups across. I haven't checked if it's exactly card for card, but it wouldn't surprise me if these two actually end up practicing together and training a little bit.
Yeah, it could be. It's one of those matchups, too, that is a lot of how you end up using the spells you are gifted through other cards, too. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one shakes up. Any mirror match comes down to who can be the most efficient with their decks, because if you have the same cards, that's kind of what it comes down to, that and the order in which they're drawn. So this is going to be Impact's Highlander Mage.
Yeah, Impact's Highlander Mage, featuring pretty standard stuff across the board, but none of those new adventure cards that we were talking about, at least in terms of the Mage class ones.
Right.
I will say it is curious if Eddie shows a Mage list, because it's not showing up on Battlefy. He has Paladin, Rogue, and Druid. available to him, not Mage, Rogue, and Druid. So
The plot thickens.
Yeah, I am a little confused as to why we were told that there's a Mage Mirror.
Oh, now we've been told it's a rogue.
Gotcha.
It's a rogue. This is just like the time when production told us that the national bird of England was a ramen.
I heard
Assistant?
ramen as well.
Yeah.
And then I got really hungry.
I'm starting to not trust these guys. I don't know.
Yeah, this also reminds me of the time they told us that we had a Mage Mirror, and it turns out it was Rogue.
Ah, that's true. There was. That's right. Hey, you know, sometimes this is just how good Eddie's rogue is. It's so stealthy.
Oh,
Some
yeah,
people
that's
mistake it
true.
for a mage sometimes.
Oh, wow, I hate when I do that.
It happens to everybody.
Maybe it's these lensless glasses. Whoa, that was really fast.
No kidding.
And just like that, Impact. Living in the
Impact.
past, winning with this Druid again.
Good job. Now it's time to try it with mage.
Great.
Now try it on a harder difficulty.
Can you imagine doing this? Like, wait, replay my my victory again, and again, and again. Kind of reminds me of the BoJack Horseman, just reliving the glory days over and over. I heard the final season's out, by the way.
I have not watched that show yet.
Have you?
I have not.
Interesting.
I have not.
It is, if you feel like you are a little bit too high on life, you're feeling too positive and happy, and things have been going too well, but you also want to laugh, definitely check out BoJack Horseman.
I mean, there's a lot of shows like that out right now, though. The Witcher.
Being very dark and edgy seems to be very meta.
Yeah, but like slightly comedic.
Slightly, yeah, slightly dark.
Laughing at the darker
but very
parts of
dark,
life.
slightly comedic.
Breaking Bad, actually a comedy.
Is it?
Yeah, no, it's really like it's a dark comedy.
Seems like a pretty heavy premise to be considered a dark comedy. Shakespeare would
comedy.
be proud.
All right, well, the stealthiest mage in the world, being played by Eddie.
That's right. Somehow the mage has done mage things and transformed all of his cards into rogue cards.
Which sounds more like a rogue thing than a mage thing.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Wow,
Maybe it was a rogue thing all the time. Maybe it was originally a rogue deck that camouflaged as a mage deck, but was really a rogue deck.
See, that's the thing. You think it's a rogue deck, and at the end of the day, it's just going to pop out and pyroblast you.
Hey,
Prep pyroblast.
Yes. Prep pyroblast. Then it's almost like an unnerfed pyroblast.
That's true. Oh man, those were the days.
Wow, can you imagine pyroblast being at 8 mana?
I can. I remember it being an 8 mana.
Wasn't that like something that you helped create? Like your practice group created like one of the first iterations of Freeze Mage?
I actually did. Yeah, I had a Freeze Mage guide on YouTube. The same place
2013.
you're watching this tournament right now. I had a Freeze Mage guide on YouTube 1 week into the beta in 2013.
You created Freeze Mage YouTube in
I created
Arlington,
YouTube
Texas back in 2013.
in the same virtual place.
Oh.
Same virtual place that the fans are out there watching right now.
I was to say, I thought you were in Korea at that time, Doa.
I was physically, but my heart was on YouTube.
Oh.
And with T-Mobile, home of the nation's fastest and only 5G network.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's right.
That's great.
Would never been able to create Freeze Mage without them.
I know. How can you imagine uploading videos to YouTube without 5G?
I did it. It wasn't easy. I still
Those were the dark days.
wake up in a
the
cold
dark
sweat.
comedic days.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dark comedic days of shows like, Breaking Bad and I don't know, Game
Twilight.
of Thrones. Game of Thrones was a comedy by the end, though, let's be honest.
That's true.
Yeah.
As is most sci-fi at this point.
It's not science fiction, it's fantasy.
Yeah, it's all make-believe to me.
How about that tiny Van Cleef?
Yeah, coin Van Cleef is not something that you often see on turn 2, but,
No.
I think a lot of times with the rogue, you really do want to pressure the mage so you don't have, so you're not just aimlessly flapping about in the early game. If you end up passing, the mage starts to hit a power curve where you have to answer their minions, and that's kind of what's happening right now. Impact got the first significant minion to stick.
Yeah, I think it wasn't a bad idea to start out with that Van Cleef to challenge the board at least, but now you got the big old whelp coming in at 5/5, and that gets a little bit intimidating. You can kill it with the Sealed Fate, but there's a couple other options to consider here too.
Yeah, Faceless Corruptor is the first thing I'm looking at to see if there's application
So
there.
many
Eddie would have to trade off his entire board, though, and that doesn't seem particularly very appetizing. At the same time, is there a better choice?
Yeah, I mean, he might get a lackey that helps out with us. He gets a helps out with this. He gets a Cobalt lackey that's a free kill on it. Witchy lackey instead, though. Multiple witchy lackeys for Eddie right now, which makes sense because he's actually a mage.
Fair enough.
Head crack. Remember when that was in a lot of decks?
I do. It's hard for me to recognize it because the art's changed.
Yeah, they have changed the art in a couple. Deadly Shot got new art as well.
That's right. No longer being a Tauren pierced through the chest. Last Samurai style. I was supposed to say status. It's not really a status to be pierced by an arrow like that.
Last Samurai Status was the name of my album. He's just going to go ahead and bring out a little bit of poison onto the field.
Was it your last album as well?
Yeah, it was. I've had many, actually. But that was the last one.
Amazing.
I don't know.
Revival there.
All right. Well, it's a 4/6, and it does get rid of the stealth, at least.
Yeah, you know, tempo, again, is really what the name of the game versus Rogue. Yes, Reno doesn't get full value, but in the end, you're still presenting, like, recursive damage over and over. And every turn, you can remove minions, develop another 4-attack minion, and push 4. I think you're in a really good spot. And you also know that eventually Rogue's going to turn the tides. It's all about, like, can you do it faster than they can get set up? In this case, Eddie's still struggling a little bit. Once more, he's stuck in a similar spot where either he trades his Faceless Corruptors or he ignores the board and tries to just do his own game plan. The Kronk's Dragonhoof will pull Galakrond from the deck, but Galakrond's not fully invoked.
No, not yet.
Almost.
Not by... is he 1 or 2 away?
I think he's 1 away. Because he's played 2 Seal Fates and a Devoted Maniac.
Could be right, yeah. Some choices to make here. Yep, decides to go with the damage to, again, maintain the board.
Arcane Breath.
Get a spell out of it, too. Grabs a Flame Strike instantly.
Right, develops forward, attack once more, and pushes forward. This is a very nice holding pattern here for Impact.
Who is sinking farther and farther into his shirt.
Yes.
Each turn. Soon it's just
the
gonna
scent
be a
of
hat sticking out
dragons.
the top. Yeah,
The scent of Impact into his shirt.
it's a quick shirt.
That or it's
sand.
like, the cologne I wore today is really nice.
I smell great. Wow. I'm sure that's what he's thinking right now.
Yes.
Obviously.
Or maybe perhaps inhaling his own pheromones. Self-love in 2020.
I'm not going to judge. You know, to each their own.
That's right.
Whatever helps you win a game of Hearthstone, you know?
Yeah, like, everybody has their own methodologies, you know?
Right, some people inhale their own pheromones. Witchy Lackey coming through.
Oh my
Ooh,
goodness, a Gyrocopter
wow.
that has Rush and Wind Fury.
That is...
It's a full board clear.
That is a spell.
Choose soon.
He's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, debating,
things correctly.
debating what's the optimal way to preserve health here. He either loses his 4/4 or his 4/3 in this spot, and I think, you know, as many people would claim, Wind Fury is better than not Wind Furied.
Well, ideally, he does manage to hold on to it with 1 health remaining, so he's saying, hey, all right, I want you to have a 6-mana turn instead of an 8-mana turn. Karkut Defender fits into that 6-mana turn.
Yeah.
Quite well, actually.
Still hasn't been a good Dragon Caster opportunity, so I am inclined to go for the Karkut Defender.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And this could be the turning point for Impact here, because suddenly, you know, he's at 19 health. He's on the verge of gaining some more because of this minion. Colossus of the Moon. How about that?
Yeah, that card has been very clunky. Like, a couple of decks can utilize it fairly well. Rogue doesn't really use it very well because it needs to have cheap minions for big combos. But I mean, it has a lot of stats, so if you have nothing else to play, sometimes it's okay.
It's a 10-10 at the end of the day.
Impact's been trying to set up for the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, which would lead well into a Caligos situation, so
Arcane
let's
Breath
find
again.
out.
Yeah.
Time to play the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, or is he thinking about another play instead?
I mean, you could think more about removing the minions.
Okay, yeah,
some
sure.
way.
I mean,
It is 8 damage.
I think he's contemplating if there's any way he can die,
Right.
which I don't think there
And I think since you can't, oh wow, gets the Calicos out of the Dragon Queen out Straza, and that is a lot of good choices. Grabs a Fireball, Flame Strike for the clear. Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you could have made an argument that he should have played Marsh Drake and then Flame Strike, because he would have summoned a 2/1 poisonous snake on the other side.
That is an excellent point.
But
I think you're right.
He does hold on to it for options.
Who in their right mind hides loot?
Sure.
Clearly should not have played it afterwards, but yeah, this is tough spot for Eddie. He's staring at 4 damage, sticks with the Fireball.
And a free Arcane Intellect too.
Yes. Also, depending on what happens with his Arcane Breath, Impact might be able to start sealing the damage he gets. Malagos aspect of magic.
Wow. All right. All the magic dragons coming out. Some choices to make here. Tome for drawing. He's got a little bit of AoE damage. Decides to go with the Frostbolt. That's more face damage, which it looks like he's kind of trying to set up lethal from hand, basically.
Right. Well, I mean, he also can use it to draw a card. He can play Stargaze Luna and Frostbolt the face.
That is true.
I will be your doom.
Okay, just drawing more damage potentially. It's kind of like what you're saying, gathering that burst damage.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Mirror Image does combo with the Stargazer Luna.
True. He's got an option to do 2 Stargazer Luna plays here.
All right, with Zephyrus, that should be a second Fireball, so 15 from hand. Oof.
That's a lot. Wow. That's almost as much as you could do with the old Pyroblast Frostbolt combo.
Right, yeah, there's just like a ton of burst. And so this 5 armor will help, but Eddie needs to go now. Unfortunately, only invoking twice. Doesn't find anything that can... wait, he has Shield of Galakron, which can activate the Harry Spear and Togwaggle, but...
That's true.
He doesn't have the mana to play the treasure.
That is also true. What a bummer. Finds the Rush Lackey, Goblin Lackey.
Still got to go for it.
Yeah, you got to do something. You have to try to play to win, you know?
Yeah, the chances of winning seem to be dwindling by the minute here.
Definitely seems that way. And like you mentioned, you know, he gets the wand, but he can't play it this turn. Ooh, all right. Just trying to clear as many turn. Ooh, all right. Just trying to clear as many minions as you possibly can. The final Lackey, the Cobalt Lackey. And Impact has a lot of damage in his hand.
Yeah, this is almost certainly lethal. There's a lot of ways that you can finish your opponent off here. Zephyrus will offer you several ways.
Yep, down to 10.
Yeah, it'll do anything of removing the 4/5 to the direct damage that he actually needs. Eddie knows he's done.
Yep, there's a swipe. That's it. Impact goes up 2-1 with a win with his Mage deck.
More surprisingly, Rogue struggling this series, down 0-2 overall, and Eddie, if he loses this final game with his Hunter, then Galakron Rogue would have gotten swept.
That is pretty crazy, actually. We'll see if he decides to bring the Rogue out for game number 3. He could decide to make a change, but you know, Rogue is one of those decks. I mean, there's a reason why it's banned. It seems to kind of have an answer for everything in the meta right now, but you got to draw those answers in the right way, I suppose. And these Highlander Mage decks, I think, are getting scarier and scarier as the tournament goes on. Just the way that they seem to also have answers for nearly every situation, and the ability to put together these crazy lethals from hand late game.
Yeah, I would probably side with switching here. Also, most notably because Eddie was just on the coin, and the way it works in Hearthstone, it's there's a very high chance you pass the coin back to your opponent or you go on the play. So if you were to expect to win the series in 5 games, next game you're on the play with Paladin, and the following game you're on the coin with Rogue.
Okay.
And Rogue's win rate skyrockets with the coin.
Of course, yeah.
When I say skyrocket, that's kind of an exaggeration.
Well, I mean, the entire class is based around combo, and the coin enables that so much so early. So naturally, yeah, the coin is much better for Rogue than it is for a lot of other classes.
Yeah. So in terms of like, if you were to theoretically queue correctly, especially if you know the outcome is the same either way, you have to beat Hunter twice. The way to line it up would be Paladin into the Rogue. Now, of course, that's still a percentage chance. It could completely blow up in his face. He could play Paladin and still be on the coin.
True.
Because I think they estimate that it happens a fourth of the time, like so 75% chance likely.
It's interesting.
But yeah, that's usually how it goes.
All right.
I'm a big proponent that if we were to make suggestions on how to change like Hearthstone formats and stuff like that, I always believe that having the ability for players to choose to go first or second would be a really big thing in Conquest.
Yeah, and it would also be like a really interesting thing to consider analytically too. And I like anything that adds in another layer of sort of complexity to the decision making in the game. So.
Right. So the idea, as Eddie gets the coin, by the way, Q's Rogue again, gets the coin anyways. So good move on his part.
All right.
But you know, I would theoretically would like it to be after the game, the loser declares if he wants to go first or second, then you pick classes. I think that'd be pretty cool. Or perhaps some variant thereof.
But it doesn't reflect the ladder experience, man.
I would always be choosing first or second because I'm always losing on ladder.
It'd be interesting to see like a Conquest format introduced, you know, in the game itself, where you could just queue up with a number of decks, get matched.
Don't get me started, Doa.
It'd be
Don't
cool.
get me started.
All right, so you agree? All right, good to know.
Yes.
A backstab in the hand for Eddie, and gonna use it on Zephyrus.
Yeah, needs to get some board presence. Honestly, getting the Temple Berserker off the Pharaoh Cat might be one of its best options, just because you curve out very nicely and you get that sticky reborn minion. It makes it difficult for the Hunter to deal with, because they have trouble pinging that 1 damage to remove the enraged version of it.
Right. Shadow Step now on the Pharaoh Cat.
Whoa.
Yeah, really wanted to put this pressure on early, but he gets a relatively expensive reborn minion.
I was not expecting that Shadow Step.
That's ambitious. And Eddie...
In fact, it's like,
yeah.
what were you trying to do, man?
Yeah. We're all wondering that.
Wow, he did the double. He emoted in game, and then he went and emoted Eddie in real life.
I love it. We need more
Wow,
of
that
this.
is brutal. How does Eddie recover mentally from that kind of pressure?
Well, that's the thing. I think the fact that he did that to begin with shows that he might be a little mentally boomed right now after having his rogue. He's a little bit mental boomed, yep, because after losing two rogue games in a row.
That Hunter, the Highlander Hunter, boomed me.
Yep. It's true.
Then Eddie
So
made
it's called.
note to add Shadow Step to the list of cards that he will not be putting in his road deck this summer.
Yeah. You know where that's from? Mentally boomed.
Oh, no, I was doing the LeBron James copy bust.
Oh, I don't know that.
Ah, sports ball.
I'm sorry. I watch football. American football, Sabo. American football.
You could have just said football. I would have perfectly understood.
I know. I was just making sure that everyone else, knew which football I was referring to. It's important.
He doesn't actually get surprisingly that riled up about that, despite him being a very sad Arsenal fan.
I made him mad with the Twilight thing, though. Did you see Twitter? I'm
yes.
sorry, Sabo.
I know. Don't apologize. Don't take that back.
I didn't say I was being genuine.
This might be the
when I
first
said
time in over 250 years since we've apologized to the British.
Wow. All right. Well, suddenly Twilight doesn't seem like that big of an insult anymore.
There you go. I am trying to deflect the heat away from Doa by attracting the flame right towards me.
I knew you picked the right team.
Co-casting synergy. Siamat on 7, really powerful with Divine Shield and Rush to get control of the board here.
Yep. Gonna be able to do just that.
And now Eddie finally has good ways to activate his
It hurts
board.
so bad, though.
Yeah.
You sap Tiamat, and you're like, all right, well, he'll be back.
He'll be back, but his impact isn't super high right now. It's kind of annoying. Like, despite the fact that Siamat's very versatile, unless you're willing to rush and Wind Fury him and kill off all these small little minions, it's kind of annoying.
Varanus, not... I mean, it doesn't do a ton for you right now because there's not a bunch of big threats out there. What do you think about this?
Siamat, I kind of like the Rush and Wind Fury aspect here.
Yeah.
Just, clean up the board. You kill off almost everything.
Yep. With that last rush minion, you get to finish off the mummy.
Right. They're still presenting a big enough threat. Eddie has to answer this. He sapped the Tiamat, so that's somewhat indicating that he's lacking in like good tempo tools.
Right. I mean, everything, a lot of the plays that Eddie has made this game just kind of reek of desperation, you know? Like going back to shadow stepping the Pharaoh Cat to sapping the Tiamat, it rhymes and it's frightening.
That's just me. I forgot to put deodorant on.
Rhymes?
I said it reeks of desperation.
Oh, it does. It does. Yeah. You reek of desperation too, Frodo. Don't worry.
Thank you. There you
I
go.
don't want to
That was
leave
the
you out.
self-burn I was going for. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Thank you. Wasteland Assassin,
Yeah.
a card that's surprisingly good in an aggressive deck. I've seen Wasteland Assassin be actually played a decent amount in some of those tempo decks in the past, but hasn't really seen much play since.
All right, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. We'll see what she finds. And it's
Oh
going to be another
my
classic
goodness.
Alexstrasza. Wow.
Alex into
Those
Alex.
I love the Nizormu here, too. Like, Impact is like, yeah, enjoy your turn. All 15 seconds of it. Seal Fate.
Seals Fate the Dragon Queen, which is interesting to me. I figured Nozdoru is the biggest threat here, but
You'd think so. It'd be the
Yeah.
most problematic. He's going to be able to take it out anyway. Or is he just going to leave it out there to try to make Nozdoru double agent now?
Eddie is kind of being put under the pressure of the rope and is just kind of doing stuff.
Hey, you know, that stuff was not terrible. I mean, he got
Yeah.
rid of nearly everything, but he's still pretty much dead, isn't he? Nearly.
For the most part.
Nearly.
Galakrond could still do some quite amazing things in the rogue class.
That is true. And is it fully invoked yet? I think it may be.
Nope.
Not quite.
Saw the word upgrade.
Oh no, I
the
guess this
drawing
game is going to end
animation.
fast. Yep.
Takes a long time. Takes half the rope.
That's a long animation.
Wait,
Oh,
Leroy.
Leroy.
Not enough though.
No, it's not.
Impact with
Wow.
the 3-1 victory over one of America's most consistent players, the reigning Masters Tour champion. He will guarantee himself a top 8 spot, I think, because he is now 7-1 after 8 rounds. And if he loses, I think his tiebreaks are good enough. But we'll have to double check to verify. So, you know, don't hold your breath too long. We'll be able to give you updates soon. As you can see, round 8 of Swiss is cleaning up very soon.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that was an interesting one. I did not expect that we'd be casting a series where we see Rogue lose 3 times in a row.
That's right. Actually, a really good point we highlighted earlier. Rogue getting swept.
Yeah. That's shocking, actually. And that last game, I felt like, again, the draws weren't great. Like he did kind of act in desperation a little bit with some of those plays, but yeah, usually that was just a strange couple of games. But Impact, kept his composure, played against the Rogue really well. And one of the things to kind of consider is that despite the strength of Galakrond Rogue, it's a deck that everybody at this tournament is extremely familiar with. Like, I feel like there's probably very few decks that people are as intimately familiar with right now in the meta as this Rogue, because everybody's played it a ton of times.
Yeah.
So when you go up against it, you really know what the mindset is of your opponent. You know what they've got access to, and you can kind of exploit that sometimes too.
Or you've even just played against it a ton, so you understand
That
its
too.
weaknesses from the other side of the board.
Yeah.
So after that series, we're going to find out who else is also potentially joining us for the top 8. And after round 8 finishes, we're going to do round 9, and that's it for day number 2.
That's exciting.
And Sunday, we're going to go and play our top 8.
Yep. Should be pretty awesome, guys. Well, there's a lot more action coming here. Less action than before, but a lot more action coming here at Hearthstone Masters Tour Arlington. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back to check out who makes it even further to the top 8 after this.
Hearthstone Masters Tour Arlington is brought to you by T-Mobile. Rank up with America's first and only nationwide 5G network.